These videos will prove everything, my mother-in-law Margaret announced triumphantly, waving a USB drive in the air like a victory flag. I've been gathering evidence for months. She's not the perfect wife everyone thinks she is. I sat quietly in the courtroom, my hands folded in my lap, watching the scene unfold. At 32, I never imagined I'd be here, listening to the woman who once welcomed me into her family trying to destroy my marriage with secretly recorded footage of my daily life. Your Honor, Margaret's voice dripped with satisfaction. These recordings show how she treats my son, how she's ruining his life. 3 months of footage doesn't lie. My name is Olivia Parker, and for the past 8 years, I've been married to James, Margaret's only son. The first few years were wonderful. James and I built a life together, both working in healthcare, me as a pediatric nurse and him as a hospital administrator. But everything changed when Margaret's husband passed away 2 years ago. She moved in with us temporarily, claiming she couldn't bear to be alone. That's when the surveillance began, though I didn't know it at the time. Mrs. Parker, the judge addressed Margaret, his expression neutral. You're saying you installed cameras in your son's house without the knowledge or consent of either resident? It's my house too, Margaret protested. I live there. I had every right to protect my son from her manipulation. I felt James shift uncomfortably beside me. He hadn't spoken to me since Margaret revealed the existence of these recordings last week. His silence hurt more than her accusations. As our lawyer, Sarah Bennett, stood up, I remembered the day everything came to light. I'd been working a double shift at the children's ward, covering for a colleague whose daughter was sick. When I got home, exhausted after 16 hours of caring for sick children, Margaret was holding a family meeting in our living room. James's siblings were there, along with their spouses, all wearing expressions of concern and disappointment. Margaret stood in the center, her laptop open, ready to showcase her evidence. Watch this, she had said, playing a clip of me coming home late one night. See how she sneaks in. Who knows where she's been? I tried to explain about my hospital shifts, but Margaret talked over me. And look at this one, she's always on her phone, ignoring my poor James, probably talking to other men. The other men were my patients' parents checking on their children's conditions. But Margaret didn't care about explanations. Now, in the courtroom, Sarah approached the bench. Your Honor, before we proceed with viewing these illegally obtained recordings, I'd like to submit Mrs. Olivia Parker's work schedules and patient care logs for the past 3 months. Margaret scoffed. Those can be faked. The videos don't lie. The judge nodded to the court technician. Let's view the footage. My stomach tightened as the first video played on the courtroom screen. It showed me in our kitchen at 5 a.m., quietly preparing breakfast and lunch for James before heading to my shift. Margaret had conveniently edited out the part where I left a loving note for him every morning. See, Margaret interrupted. She's leaving before he wakes up. What kind of wife does that? The judge held up his hand. Mrs. Parker, please refrain from commentary. Let's continue. More clips played, me coming home late, taking phone calls in the garden, having whispered conversations in our home office. Each moment taken out of context, each action twisted to fit Margaret's narrative. Then something unexpected happened. In one of the clips, the camera caught Margaret herself, entering my home office late at night. She was going through my desk drawers, searching for something. The courtroom fell silent. Margaret's face paled. Your Honor, Sarah spoke up, it seems these recordings capture more than just my client's activities. The next clip showed Margaret in our bedroom, rummaging through my personal belongings. Then another of her reading my private journal on the back porch. And another of her going through my phone while I was in the shower. I was just protecting my son, Margaret stammered. She's not who she pretends to be. James finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. Mom, what were you doing in our bedroom? More footage played, showing Margaret having hushed phone conversations of her own. Yes, I'm telling you, she's got to go. James needs someone more traditional, someone who'll stay home. I've got a perfect girl in mind. Yes, Jessica would be much better for him. Jessica, my replacement, already picked out by my mother-in-law. The judge paused the playback. Mrs. Parker, these recordings appear to show a pattern of invasion of privacy and premeditated interference in your son's marriage. Are you aware that in this state, recording someone without their consent in private spaces is illegal? Margaret's composure cracked. But I had to. She's destroying our family with her career and her independence. In my day, wives knew their place. I felt tears welling up but refused to let them fall. For months, I'd endured Margaret's subtle sabotage, her snide comments about my work, her attempts to create distance between James and me. The recordings were just the latest weapon in her arsenal. Your Honor, Sarah said, we have more evidence to present, including text messages between Mrs. Margaret Parker and this Jessica person, discussing plans to end my client's marriage. As Sarah spoke, I noticed James staring at the frozen image on the screen. His mother, in our bedroom, holding my journal with a look of pure satisfaction on her face. The truth was finally unraveling, one frame at a time. The judge called for a brief recess, and as the courtroom emptied, I remained seated, my eyes fixed on my hands. 8 years of marriage, countless night shifts saving children's lives, endless attempts to please a mother-in-law who had already decided to replace me. All of it captured on camera, but not in the way Margaret had intended. Sometimes the evidence you gather tells a different story than the one you thought you were telling. After the recess, Margaret's demeanor had completely changed. Gone was the triumphant smile, replaced by a defensive scowl as more videos played. Each clip she'd meant to use against me instead revealed her calculated interference in our lives. Here's another one from March 15th, the court technician announced. The footage showed me organizing a surprise birthday dinner for James. I'd spent my day off preparing his favorite meals, transforming our dining room with decorations. Then Margaret appeared in the frame, answering James's phone while I was in the kitchen. Oh, sorry, honey. Olivia had to work late again. Margaret's voice rang clear through the speakers. She said not to wait up. I remembered that night. James never came home for the surprise dinner. When I called him, it went straight to voicemail. The food went cold, the candles melted, and I fell asleep at the table waiting for him. Your Honor, Sarah interjected. We have phone records showing my client never made such a call. Mrs. Parker fabricated this excuse to prevent her son from coming home that evening. James turned to his mother, his face a mask of disbelief. Mom, I was so angry at Olivia that night. I thought she'd forgotten my birthday. I was protecting you. Margaret insisted, her voice rising. She's never home, always putting her career first. You deserve someone who'll put family first. The next clip showed Margaret in our garden, talking on her phone. Jessica, darling, remember what we discussed. The charity gala next week. Olivia will be working nights. It's the perfect chance for you to accompany James. Yes, wear that blue dress we picked out. I felt James stiffen beside me. The charity gala, where he'd spent the evening with Jessica, a young receptionist from his hospital's administrative office. Margaret had orchestrated the whole thing, knowing I was scheduled for the pediatric night shift. More footage played. Margaret deleting messages from my phone to James. Margaret accidentally spilling coffee on cards I'd written him. Margaret telling visitors I was probably out with friends when I was actually working saving children's lives. Mrs. Parker, the judge's voice was stern. These recordings document a deliberate pattern of interference and manipulation. Did you consider the impact of your actions on your son's marriage? I did it for James. Margaret's composure finally cracked. She's never been good enough for him. Always working, taking calls at all hours. What kind of wife does that? A pediatric nurse, Mom, James spoke up, his voice stronger now. She takes calls because children's lives depend on her. How many times has she rushed to the hospital at midnight to save a patient? The court fell silent as another clip began playing. This one showed me in our living room at 3 a.m., still in my scrubs, quietly crying while looking at our wedding photo. It was the night I lost my first patient, a 6-year-old girl named Sophie. Margaret's camera caught my vulnerability, but also her reaction, standing in the doorway, smirking, making no move to comfort me. Your Honor, Sarah stood. I'd like to submit Olivia's hospital records from that night. A young patient passed away despite my client's best efforts to save her. Rather than receiving support from her family, she was left to grieve alone while her mother-in-law documented her pain. I felt James's hand reach for mine under the table, the first contact we'd had in weeks. His fingers trembled as they intertwined with mine. I have one final clip, Sarah announced, nodding to the technician. The screen showed Margaret in my home office again, this time with Jessica. They were going through my medical certificates and awards, tucked away in my desk drawer. Look at all this, Margaret's voice dripped with disdain. She thinks these make her special. Don't worry, once you're in the picture, these will disappear. James needs a wife who understands that family comes first, not some career-obsessed woman who's barely home. Jessica looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Parker, I don't know about this. James seems to really love Olivia. Love isn't enough, Margaret snapped. Now, here's what we'll do next. The judge stopped the playback. I've seen enough. Mrs. Parker, you installed these cameras intending to prove your daughter-in-law was an unfit wife. Instead, you've documented your own systematic attempts to destroy your son's marriage. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Margaret looked around the courtroom, perhaps finally realizing how her plan had backfired. Her face crumpled, but not with remorse, with anger. She took my son away from me, Margaret burst out. Ever since they married, he's changed. He supports her career, he's proud of her work. That's not how I raised him. A wife's place is in the home, not gallivanting around saving other people's children while neglecting her own family. I felt James's grip on my hand tighten. 8 years of marriage and I'd never neglected him. Different shifts, yes. Late nights, certainly, but every moment we had together was filled with love, understanding, and mutual support. Until Margaret moved in and began poisoning our happiness with her outdated expectations and manipulative schemes. The footage she gathered as ammunition against me had instead exposed her own interference, her attempts to replace me with someone who fit her narrow view of what a wife should be. Every clip, every recorded moment revealed not my failures as a wife, but her failures as a mother who couldn't let go. As we sat there, watching Margaret's carefully constructed plan crumble around her, I realized something important. Sometimes the truth has a way of emerging, even when it's captured through a lens of deceit. The judge called for another brief recess before making his ruling. As the courtroom began to empty, I felt James lean closer. Olivia, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I am so sorry. I had no idea. I squeezed his hand, 8 years of love giving me the strength to face whatever came next. The cameras had stopped rolling, but our story wasn't over yet. When the judge returned, the atmosphere in the courtroom was electric with tension. Margaret sat alone now, her lawyer looking uncomfortable beside her as the judge shuffled through his notes. Before I make my ruling, the judge began, I have reviewed additional evidence submitted by both parties. This includes Mrs. Olivia Parker's professional accolades, patient testimonials, and most importantly, text messages between Margaret Parker and several other parties discussing her orchestrated attempts to end this marriage. He looked directly at Margaret. Mrs. Parker, your actions go beyond simple interference. You've committed several criminal offenses, including illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Margaret started to protest, but the judge held up his hand. I'm issuing an immediate restraining order. You are to vacate your son's home within 24 hours and maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from both James and Olivia Parker. Furthermore, you will be required to attend counseling sessions to address your controlling behavior. James stood up. Your Honor, if I may speak. The judge nodded. Mom, James turned to Margaret, his voice firm but sad. I've watched these videos in silence, seeing how you systematically tried to destroy my marriage. You interfered with our communications, manipulated situations, and tried to replace my wife with someone who fit your outdated ideals. He took my hand, pulling me to stand beside him. But what you fail to understand is that I love Olivia precisely because of who she is. Her dedication to saving children's lives, her strength, her independence, these aren't flaws to be corrected. They're the qualities that made me fall in love with her. Margaret's face crumpled. But James, I only wanted what was best for you. No, Mom, you wanted what was best for you, and it stops today. As we left the courtroom, I felt lighter somehow. The truth had finally come to light, captured ironically by the very cameras meant to destroy us. That evening, back in our home, James and I began the process of healing. We found and removed all 17 cameras Margaret had hidden throughout our house, in light fixtures, behind picture frames, even in our bedroom. I can't believe she went this far, James said, holding the last camera we'd found in his hands. All these years, I never saw how controlling she was. I'm so sorry, Olivia. I sat beside him on our couch, The same one where Margaret had hosted her family meeting to expose my supposed failings as a wife. You know what's ironic? I said softly. Those cameras captured some of our best moments too. The midnight cuddles when I got home from shifts. The way you leave coffee ready for me every morning. The quiet moments when we just hold each other after a hard day. James smiled, his first genuine smile in weeks. She was so focused on finding evidence against you, she missed all the evidence of our love. The next day, my colleague Linda stopped by. She'd been covering my shifts at the pediatric ward during the court proceedings. The parents have been asking about you, she said, hugging me tight, especially little Max's mom. He's doing so much better now, thanks to your quick thinking last month. I felt tears well up, remembering how Margaret had criticized me for rushing to the hospital that night when Max had a seizure. The cameras had recorded her calling me dramatic and attention-seeking as I ran out the door to save a child's life. James wrapped his arm around me. She's going back to work next week, he announced proudly. Where she belongs, saving lives and making a difference. 3 months later, we received an unexpected package. Inside was a letter from Jessica, along with a USB drive. I wanted you to have this, she wrote. Your mother-in-law didn't just record at your house. She recorded our conversations too, planning how to break up your marriage. I'm truly sorry for my part in it. The footage is yours to do with as you wish. We never watched those recordings. Instead, James and I made our own videos of date nights, quiet moments, and celebrations of each life saved at the hospital. We created new memories, untainted by hidden cameras and secret agendas. Margaret respected the restraining order, though we heard through family that she was struggling to accept her role in what happened. The counseling sessions were helping, they said, forcing her to confront her controlling behavior and outdated views. 1 year later, as I sat in our garden after a long shift, James joined me with 2 cups of coffee. You know what today is? He asked. I smiled. The anniversary of the court case. No, he corrected, pulling me close. It's the anniversary of the day we took our life back. He was right. The cameras that were meant to prove I was a bad wife had instead strengthened our marriage, showing us the importance of trust, understanding, and standing together against those who would tear us apart. As we sat there, watching the sunset, I realized that sometimes the best evidence of love isn't what's captured on camera. It's in the quiet moments, the supporting hands, and the hearts that choose each other every single day. The cameras were gone, but our story continued, stronger than ever. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's living well, loving deeply, and knowing that no amount of surveillance can capture the true essence of a marriage built on trust, respect, and unconditional love.